Hello and welcome to predictocast, the podcast where we predict a movie storyline after watching only the first 10 minutes and knowing nothing else about it. I'm Josh, and with me as always is Skinner. Hey, Skinner.
Hey, Josh, everybody.
We have traveled into the future, and we are here to talk about the brand new film, Bill and Ted Face the Music. This is a little bit different for us because this is a brand new movie. We don't usually do this. We usually do a lot of older, obscure stuff, but we were both looking forward to Bill and Ted. So we did a mini that dropped last week with our predictions based solely on the trailer. And now we're here to talk about the rest of the movie. So if you did not hear our predictions on what we thought the film would be, hop in your phone booth, head back to Friday, listen to that episode, and then come on back to right now so we can talk about the rest of the movie.
And if you didn't hear Josh make some accurate predictions about what this movie is going to be about, that's because Josh did it off air.
Well, to be fair, that prediction wasn't wholly mine. I had seen it pop up from various sources on the internet, and I thought, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So we're not going to go through this beat by beat because, one, it's a comedy, and it's kind of hard to retell comedy jokes, like that's sort of a weird thing. But we'll talk about little bits and pieces here and there. We'll talk about our overall thoughts on it, which I'll just get out of the way now. I think this is a great movie. It's exactly what I needed when I watched it.
Same here. I really enjoyed it. Like, for some history, I think I can think of the first 3 or 4 movies I went to see in theater as a kid. My parents didn't take us to the theaters that often because my parents didn't enjoy spending money on the kids, except for Christmas. I didn't get toys except for Christmas and my birthday, which are 1 week apart. And I got McDonald's 3 times a year. So we didn't go to theaters, but the movies I saw in theater, I know the very first one I saw in theaters was the Big Bird movie, Follow That Bird. And then I know I saw Spaceballs in theater. And then I know this is the first one that I specifically said to my parents, I need to go see Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I need to go see that in theaters. This movie is going to be my favorite movie. And I went and saw it in theaters. I saw Bogus Journey in theaters. I'm a big fan of that. And so I was just excited to have these characters back. I'm predisposed to like it, but it's just fun. You could sit there and go and pick apart, does the time travel make sense? It doesn't. To me, it doesn't matter.
I think that's the idea to go into it, is the time travel logic going to make sense if you start to break it down? Probably not, but who cares? Kind of.
And I don't know if people are doing that. I haven't seen a lot of feedback on it yet. Other larger things have happened in the world since the minute of this release, which is just how 2020 goes. But it's not a perfect film, but it was never made to be a perfect film. It's very fun. It's very sunny. It's very optimistic. It's in almost a very naive 1989 sort of way, which is what you kind of wanted of this. There was an idea with, the Rhythm Nation album and Robotech that a song could unite everybody.
Well, and I think that was kind of the intent of all those We Are the World type things too. It was kind of we're going to make this song that's going to talk about, us all being one people and, bonded together, and we're going to do it through music, and that can heal everyone.
And it could, but instead we made Toby Keith and gave him restaurants. It was very interesting to have this come out, and this is a time and place thing, but we're releasing this for a time and place where the tone of this movie's finale is diametrically opposed to what the world is this specific week.
Yeah, it's kind of wild how I think you're right. I think if that's it's so different than what we are currently living that it was nice to escape for a little while, but it was also kind of a bummer because it's oh man, wouldn't that be so nice
life isn't that easy. Like we're not gonna like we have serious problems to solve in serious ways.
Yes.
But at the same time, I appreciated that this movie just fucking said, this is a Bill and Ted movie. It's going to have a happy ending. I'm going to have a happy tie up of these characters. This is like, we mentioned in the part one, that like I had very little doubt that this movie would end extremely positively. And it did. Yeah. And like, it's not a movie. It's a movie that has a problem for the characters to solve, but you're never worried for 1 millisecond that they won't solve it.
Yeah, of course.
And like that's not what like with the time travel, that's not the details of it aren't what is important. It's important what you're important is like, hey, these are fun characters, they're having fun, you know them. One thing I want to mention in this podcast, that I watched this with my 12-year-old daughter, Holly, who has zero, maybe -0 familiarity with Bill and Ted, the Bill and Ted movies, and I guess the cartoon, and B, Valley teenage culture.
Oh, like, I thought you were going to say she also has no experience with the Bill and Ted stage show.
she hasn't. She's watched every YouTube of that. But like she like the whole like dude whoa thing like that. Yeah. She doesn't know what that is. Like she has no idea what Bart Simpson is, has no idea what the Ninja Turtles are, has no idea Earth Girls Are Easy. Like that entire genre of thing. Like if my wife started talking to her before we started doing like the whoa dude, and she's like, will you stop that to her? She's like, I don't know why you're doing that. It's not, I don't like it. What I don't know what that accent is what she actually did. But it was one of those things where she like started off kind of, basic kid that age, not caring, but the movie was just putting out fun and silliness so earnestly that she got into it. She had a good time by the end. She was very much enjoying it. And she doesn't know who Jimi Hendrix is or Louis Armstrong really, or yeah, she kind of knows who Mozart is, I guess, to a small degree, but like she was just like, she just like knew that it was fun. I have no idea who Kid Cudi is.
Oh, well, he is a musician. He was on Comedy Bang Bang for one season as the musical host.
I have never listened to Comedy Bang Bang.
Well, no. He was on the TV show.
I've never watched a TV show either. What channel is it on?
It was on IFC. It's since been canceled, but it was fun.
IFC as a channel?
Very good show. Yes.
I don't even own the TV, Josh.
You watched this on your Game Boy Color like it was meant to be seen.
I put the little cartridge in and attached a wire to it.
I agree, I think, with most of the things that you said. I think we did bring this up on our prediction episode. I do feel like it is a relatively tight movie. I do feel like there should have been a little bit more with their wives. I liked that sort of plot, but I would have liked to have seen. I guess everything that Bill and Ted experience as they travel through time is also the same places that their wives end up. But I would have liked to have seen maybe one of them where Bill and Ted don't go, like just an additional one that they come to and they see and they realize, oh, there's a problem.
I did enjoy because they were given so little to do in the second movie, if my memory's correct. But like, when they're at the counseling and like they don't pretend that they also aren't time travelers.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, when the time loop thing that's going to happen is explained to them, they're like, I guess we have to do it because we've dealt with time problems before. And if we're told we're going to do this and we're going to see ourselves and then ourselves show up, I guess we're going to go see ourselves and we're going to travel through time. And they do it in a very they're like they have their own movie series that they have that we've never seen where they're also experienced.
And that's why I would have liked at least like one scene of them
on without Bill nor Ted in the frame.
Yeah, or them going and seeing like a weird version of Bill and Ted and like
Or a weird version of themselves would have been fun. But the movie is. We thought the movie would be very tight, and as far as like just kind of going, they are time traveling very quickly.
Yeah, I checked my watch because I said in the first movie I think it's around the 11-minute mark that everything starts getting introduced to them, and I think it's about minute 12 in this one where Kelly shows up, who we did say was the daughter of Rufus. We called that one correctly, and she shows up around minute 12. So like they're keeping a pace with. Like the previous movies of getting things going. I mean, it's a relatively tight, fun movie. There's like it moves. It has a good pace to it. It never feels like it drags at any point to me.
Yeah, it's interesting that the movie kind of goes at that. Like, I liked the fact that they didn't spend a long time kind of over. I felt that when they got to the future, they could have they in a lot of movies they would have spent more time with them like dealing with like because what they do is they increase the stakes of what Bill and Ted had to save before, like, you know, they had to bring world peace basically.
Yeah.
Now reality and time itself is falling apart.
Yeah, because basically they haven't written this song that they were supposed to have written already, they are destined to write this song at this particular day at this particular time, and
just like
because
70
it's getting
minutes or so.
Yeah, because it's getting close to this point in time, like it's starting to throw reality off. So if somehow they don't achieve what they're supposed to do, even though they have done it, again, don't get caught up in the time travel aspects because it will make no sense.
Yeah, if you try to sit there, and I know some people are like, well, what are these asshole Bill and Teds that keep running into if they fix everything? And it's like, well, they fixed everything, so they don't exist.
Well, and they kind of do cover it, because when they meet themselves when they're super old, they do say that there are multiple timelines happening all at once, basically.
Once they hit the infinity button, it explains everything. It doesn't explain everything, but at the same time, it's all it needs to explain.
It covers it because they exist within an infinite realities and infinite timelines, and so they're able to just do whatever at that point.
And if you had pay attention when the wives are going on looking into infinite realities to find a reality where they have a good marriage and they're happy with Bill and Ted, you're like, oh, they just straight up said there's more than one reality, let alone time shift.
Yeah, because time and reality are starting to collapse, and historical figures are being thrown throughout time and put into places where they don't belong. I think Babe Ruth is in the crossing of the Delaware. I think Kid Cudi goes to the Last Supper, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And there's a lot more Jesus in this movie than I would have thought. Like literally,
yeah.
Jesus. Like, I didn't expect one of the historical figures to be Jesus. He doesn't have any lines, but it's Jesus.
But it makes sense because they have confirmed that heaven and hell are real.
They have, and hell's not that bad. Which hell was at least kind of bad in the second movie. Like they do not give a shit about hell in this movie.
Well, it's weird that everybody goes to hell. Like, is the robot's gun a hell gun that sends people to hell? Like, they have no choice in the matter?
I'm sorry, he has a name.
Oh, that is true. I'm sorry.
That was my daughter and wife. Like, my wife has
Dennis Caleb McCoy. I apologize.
My wife has not seen Bogus Journey, and my daughter has not seen anything. They both super enjoy Dennis Caleb McCoy.
He's great.
As he is so. There's a moment when he first kills. When he kills the daughters, we'll be doing spoilers. Where he zaps,
they know.
The daughters and all the historical figures, and he goes, "Oh no, oh no!" And like it was such a Jim Gaffigan impression. I was like, I know this is not Jim Gaffigan, but he's doing the Jim Gaffigan. Oh no!
Well, this guy is great. His name is Anthony Carrigan. He's probably best known as NoHo Hank in Barry. And he is amazing in that show. If you've never seen Barry, it's an excellent show. It's on HBO. Great, go watch it. He's amazing in both seasons. And when I found out he was in the movie as this robot, I was like, oh, that's an interesting choice. But then when I see how that character goes, I'm like, oh, it makes perfect sense. Like he does such a good job with that.
it is one of the funnier things that isn't a lot in the trailers, which is nice, but also
yes,
like,
we didn't know there was a robot. Like we joked in the prediction episode last week, like, oh, maybe there's a killer robot, and there is.
And he's insecure. But that's the thing, the things that were funniest to me in this movie are the things that are kind of set up, but not set up, and the movie doesn't care. One is the robot being insecure, and the throwaway line that he's named after. He's made by the great leader,
yes,
who is the wife of Rufus, the mother of Kelly, which is Kristen Schaal.
Yeah,
and for no reason that we can ever decipher, she has a throwaway line of, "I can't believe you named the killer robot after my ex."
Yeah,
and it's such a great little line. And also for him to have a full name, and the process of him like, I have a name, it's Dennis. Okay. Dennis McCoy. Okay. Dennis Caleb McCoy. Like the way he delivers it is way better than, of course, I do, because I'm not paid anything.
Yes.
But that the fact that the stake, we mentioned, it is now time and reality are falling apart, not just world peace.
Yeah.
That Bill and Ted have to do, and like that isn't what was in the first two movies, and so everyone, when they mention it, are like, that's an escalation. Like, what? He's like, yeah. They're like, yeah. They changed it, and like they always just kind of hand wave it away. Like when Billy and Thea like are like, wait, what are you talking about? Even his dad, like that wasn't part of your story before, and they're like, yeah, well, it is now.
Okay, so let's talk about his dad. I was glad that same actor was still available to come back. Like he's so great in the previous two movies, and he's amazing here too.
Yes, when he's possessed in the previous movie and does their act, it is legitimately fantastic physical comedy.
Oh yes, and when he goes to the police station, he's like, "What's up, dude?"
It's so good. And my favorite callback that I almost forgot, I would not have imagined they've done this. And mind you, they keep recasting the princesses, right?
Yes, they do, which is a little weird. Like they could have probably gotten the same people, but I don't know. I mean, Erin Hayes is a accomplished comedy performer. She plays Elizabeth, Ted's wife, and like she doesn't really have anything to do, which is kind of a bummer. Their
facial expressions and reaction shots are so good that like it makes you wish there was more of them.
Yeah, for sure.
But the person they kept from the very first movie on, who has not changed casting, is Missy. Who
that whole
what
plot
a great
line
running
is
joke.
Very funny. Like, okay, so we should talk about this because this is at the beginning. They are at the wedding of Missy and Deacon, Ted's little brother, who at one point was her stepson.
Yes,
that is so weird.
They explain they explain the running joke from the first movie on, where Missy was basically the hot older girl in a grade ahead of Bill and Ted. Bill and Ted both asked her to the prom. She ended up marrying Bill's dad.
Yeah.
And then
no, she married Ted's dad first, I think. Then
she marries Ted's dad. She leaves Ted's dad for Bill's dad.
Yes.
And leaves Bill's dad for Ted's little brother.
Yes. And when speaking of Ted's dad, when they're going through it all and they're like, so Deacon's his own like stepfather and my dad is his own son now, or something like that.
It's so good. It's such
his dad's reaction to that, just this like befuddled look on his face. It's so good. That guy does a lot of work with just facial expressions.
He does. And his later, he gets shot by the robot and sent to hell first, and later by going to hell, they have a moment where he meets Bill and Ted, and it's one of those times that you almost kind of wish for in a lot of characters in the movies, where like the character who's the doubt character, who's always yelling at the main characters about like, your story's ridiculous, just get a job, blah blah blah.
Yeah, he does that at the very beginning of this movie.
He does. once again. But he has the come to Jesus moment, even though Jesus is in the movie, in hell of like, okay, I'm in hell. Hell's real. All these people are here. There's time travel people. My granddaughter is with Jimi Hendrix and Louis Anderson and Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart and Lin Lu.
Louis Armstrong, not Louis Anderson.
Louis and
let's play the feud.
Let's play the feud. He's in hell too. You know what he is. And he's like, well, clearly everything you've said ever has been true, and I've doubted you, and I've apologized. He does this whole long plot description where he just apologizes and apologizes and apologizes, and like, and you said this is true and this is true, and you must actually be the people who write the song to unite the world in peace and blah blah blah. And they're like, also time we had to fix reality itself. And he's like, and that's where he goes, wait, what? That wasn't part of your story. And like, it is now. And his facial expression of befuddlement of this one escalation on top of this already ridiculous story of their 3 movies is perfect. It is absolutely perfect. He still can do like this character, Hal Lanninger Jr. his character perfectly.
Yeah, no, he's very good. So they do go into the future because of Kelly, and she has, as we talked about from the trailer, that they're presented with the sort of leadership of the future, and they basically give them, the thing, and they decide, okay, well, we're going to travel into the future and try to steal the song from ourselves, so we can, because we don't think that we can actually write it, and so that leads to them going through multiple periods of time, meeting different versions of themselves. And I liked the contrast there between that and then their daughters, who we haven't talked about a lot yet, going further back in time to get different people to comprise this band, because their daughters, essentially, they get a briefing from Kelly and understand that their dads need a band in order to play this great song. So they go back in time and basically try to build a band. So it's a combination of, both movies in a weird way, like we speculated.
I do like that, because these kids have been raised by 15th century princesses and time travelers. They have there's no point, and like they're basically like they're in the first part, they're kind of female, their doppelgangers are their parents. They're literally
Yes.
Thea and Billie.
For sure.
Thea is Bill's, Billy's is Ted's.
Yeah.
But like, just them always hitting the ground running. Like they're never surprised at everything. They're like, they've always believed their dads, and their moms clearly would have told them that it's all true. There's no character besides their grandpa who, in their lives, who would ever say like, hey, this isn't real, because these characters have no reason to ever have hidden them to tell them that it's like not real.
Yeah.
I mean, they grew up with death as someone they knew.
Very true.
So like, it's very nice that they like, when they see their dads go through time, they're like, oh shit, it's on. Like, we have to help, because this is clear. It clearly means something big is happening.
Yeah, it's not, they never have to jump the hurdles of that a lot of movies do when something is introduced to them and they're like, oh, wait a minute, I have to wrap my brain around this and try to figure out how to, understand how this all works. And they're just like, okay, so here's what we can do. We can go through time with this thing, right? And we can build a band up. And they're like, yeah, you can. And they're like, okay, cool. So that's what we're going to do. And then they just keep doing it. And they, pull together this very, diverse group of people that
I can't believe they got Louis Armstrong for it. And also they also got Louis Anderson at the same band.
But yeah, they go back in time. First stop with Jimi Hendrix, who doesn't quite believe them. So they go back a little further and they get Louis Armstrong. One of my favorite bits with that was them showing him a cell phone and him just being blown away by it, like trying to figure out how it's playing.
I love that he's so impressed with it. He's like, you know what? I'm on board for whatever happens next, because you have shown me the coolest thing.
Yeah, and his other band members come over and they're like, "What is that thing?" And they're all like amazed by it, which is what would happen.
Yeah, and like the girls don't give it to him to impress him. They just kind of forgot like, oh shit, we took this video to show you, but we forgot you would know what this thing is.
Yeah, and then they go back to Jimi Hendrix, who now he thinks Louis fake, which I did like that a little bit. It wasn't just immediately like, oh, okay, cool. Like it takes him a second. He still doesn't quite believe it, and then Louis starts playing, and he's like, well, okay, wait a minute, nobody plays like this. This has got to be something. And then they convince him somehow.
It's fun because every time they have done this in the past or something, and like further on, like they're going to get somebody so far in history before the last person that the other person is just kind of legend to them. Louis Armstrong's still alive, but Jimi Hendrix is alive.
Yeah.
So they actually have the girls like, crap, we should have got an older version of Louis Armstrong to make him believe it. Because he's like, no, Louis Armstrong's alive. He's just an old guy. Who's this young guy?
They go back to get Mozart, who is he and Jimi Hendrix have sort of a dueling pianos type thing, except Jimmy's playing a guitar, and which Mozart's really very impressed by this.
I really enjoyed the music. I would listen to this.
Oh yeah, and then they go back and they get Ling Lun, who is someone that I wasn't familiar with. Apparently, this is like sort of the legendary founder of music in ancient China, and apparently the I guess there is some speculation about whether it's a man or a woman. I guess people assume that it's a man, but they make a comment of like, oh, it's a woman too. So like they kind of play with some stuff there. I guess this is like a myth maybe, so it might not be a real person, or it might be like a combination of things, and they have some interesting fun with that. And then because Mozart is very impressed by her flute playing, and then they go back even further in time to the cave person times and find a drummer named Grom, who is apparently the best drummer in all of time.
It's a funny joke. It seems weird to be doing a cave person joke in 2020.
Yes.
But it's there, and it fits with what they've done in the past. Because like it is the two combinations.
Speaking of cave person, I wanted to say there...
Are we talking about Louis Anderson's more?
No. What I was going to say is there is a fun little callback to the first movie on the production logo card for Hammerstone Studios. Did you catch that?
No.
So in the first movie, when they first time travel, they go back to the beginning, basically it's sort of the beginning of time, and find they see some cavemen standing there, and they kind of are surprised by it, and then they leave. They realize they went too far back, and they go forward again. But on the title card for Hammerstone, it's like an old sort of thing, and there's like little cave drawings and stuff on the bottom of the thing, and there's a cave drawing of Bill and Ted with the phone booth.
Oh, nice. By the way, they get the phone booth in this movie because you want them to have the phone booth, and there's no sense for them in 2020 for them to have phone booths. There's basically a display in the future of where Rufus is now dead. In the future, they could have gone back to a point where he is alive, but
don't question it.
Don't question it. And it's like a museum piece of like, here's the original phone booth I used to go back and get the great heroes. And they're like, and so they just grab that and they have a phone booth. There you go. They have the phone booth in the movie that you want them to have the phone booth in by grabbing it in the future rather than the current future, which no longer has phone booths. Here's one simple thing this movie does that I appreciate. I didn't realize I appreciated until near the very end of the movie. There are girl versions of Bill and Ted, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're kids. They are not sexualized at all.
No.
There's no stupid, here's Ted, except for he's a hot young girl.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, there isn't, that's obviously not the intent of the movie in any way, but I do appreciate it. And speaking of their daughters, their respective daughters, like both of these actors, Samara Weaving and Bridget Lundy Payne, are amazing in the roles. Like they perfectly feel like extensions of Bill and Ted.
They do. And they're just fun. They don't feel like. I know everyone's always afraid of kid replacements for their favorite kid character from their kid, but like it does like it never feels like they're horned in to be the cool ones to please the, like, oh, now younger kids can watch the movie and relate to them. Like, no, like it's that Bill and Ted are older men and they have young adult kids because they're at that age. That's it. It never feels like a production excuse. It feels like an extension of the story, and the actors are doing just a great job with it.
Yeah, for sure. We should talk a little bit about after they end up all in hell. They have to get Death to be their friend again, because apparently there's some bad blood between Bill and Ted and Death.
Everything this is about is funnier because it's Death.
Yes,
like it's there's a lot of funny lines here, anyways. But here's the most amazing thing to me was, so my daughter hasn't seen any Bill and Ted, none at all, no experience. My wife has not seen Bogus Journey, even though she has most of Excellent Adventure memorized line by line. She had no idea that there was Death in this series as a character. No clue. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that she just finds German accents funny, which is funny because my sister-in-law's husband was German. God bless Oliver Nice, rest in power. Like, she always, like, even with him talking, she loves German accents and finds German saying ridiculous things funny. I don't know why, but she literally almost shit herself over this entire scene. She was laughing so goddamn hard at this entire thing.
Well, you have to take her back to watch Bogus Journey, because he is one of the best parts of that movie.
Absolutely. I guess and I'm like, well, you enjoy that so much. There's absolutely no way you can't watch Bogus Journey now, because he's so much more in Bogus Journey.
Yeah. So basically what happened was they had some infighting in the band, because Death basically wanted to take the name Wild Stallions and tour on his own. He has some great line readings of, like, they were like, Death, you tried to take the name Wild Stallions. He's like, I was Wild Stallions.
Which is funny. It's really funny where, like, you'll especially now, where, like, really nobody bands that are kind of at the level of Wild Stallions are in the news for running concerts in states that will allow it. And, like, you're like, oh, they're still alive. And then you read up on them, and, like, it's like there's like two versions of that band. And they both use the name. And
oh yeah.
It's like, in like one band, it's like, it's the percussionist from the band, and somehow he has the name rights, and the rest of the band is not them. And, like, it's just the drummer. Why would that be? But it gets so ridiculous. I love when they're like he did a 40-minute bass solo in the middle of our concert.
Yeah, and it isn't Bill and Ted who get him to agree to take them back to Earth and rejoin them. It is actually Billie and Thea. They come in and they essentially get them to all agree that and apologize to each other. They
basically butter him up by saying how much they loved his solo albums.
Yes,
which is
Pale on Pale, I think, or something
Pale
like
Pale.
that.
There's Too Pale to Cry is one of his songs.
Yeah, it's great. It's fun seeing him back, and he obviously seems to like doing it, and we talked about this a little bit in the mini, but just that he was so excited when he was tweeting about, getting to go back and be the Grim Reaper again and all this stuff, and how excited he was. And, like, it really does come through. And I think that's another thing that like I really liked about the movie is just how they seem to be enjoying themselves, like getting to see Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter in, like, various costumes as the various different Bill and Teds, especially, like, the big bulky ones when they're in prison.
They are having it is so clear how much fun they're having. As soon as they start meeting themselves and talking to themselves, and it's just it's 2 Teds and 2 Bills.
Yeah.
2 Keanu's and 2 Alexes. Like, you can just tell Keanu and Alex are having the best fucking time. It comes through so strong. Like the British versions of themselves.
Oh, when they're doing
accents.
the fake British accents. That's so funny.
Like, it's so funny. And you can just tell Alex is almost cracking every scene.
Yeah. No, it was kind of, it was like this joyful thing where you could tell that the people both behind the camera and in front of the camera were just happy to be doing it. Like they were having a good time. And sometimes that can really carry a movie. Like it's not that this is bad in any way or whatever. Like, you know, like we said, not a perfect movie. Some things we would have liked to have seen. But overall, Station is mentioned in a weird way.
Why does he say that?
I'm kind of curious. I think because Kid Cudi
is Station?
No, I don't. Maybe
Station was in the band, so Station is known by anybody who knows Wild Stallions. Who at one point we should mention that the song "End of Bogus Journey" was not the song, but it did make them very popular, and then they just kind of became less and less popular because
it made them famous and made them rich, but like it didn't last because they kind of rode that wave and then it crested and they didn't have a follow-up. They got basically too comfortable.
Right. But if end of that movie, and I know there are some parts of the end of that movie that are not canon to this movie, but Station was in the band.
That is true.
So Station would have been famous on Earth.
Yeah, so maybe but Kid Cudi is also seen as being incredibly smart and well versed on time travel and the weird stuff that is going on. So maybe he knows more than he's letting on because I think there must be something going on there. But I don't know exactly what it is. Never
quite explained.
Yeah, it's fine. Who gives a shit?
I like when they're like, oh, we've got all these people through time, and Kid Cudi's like, and I'm kind of from around this time. But he's not quite, because he has to still go back.
Yes, he did get time displaced, so
just a little bit.
Yeah.
We were talking about in part 1, or one of the best parts is like there's the scene where in the early movies where they had to, in theory, at the end of the movie, they had to do a bunch of stuff to set up what happened in this movie. Like as soon as the movie ended, they'd have to go like time travel to set up traps for themselves. And it's super clever like that. The one thing they do in this movie that is much less clever, but is very funny to me, is they're trying to flee themselves, but themselves remember what they did. Uh-huh. So they have to do something to make sure that they don't remember what they did, and what that is, and it's just so fucking stupid. It's amazing. They put buckets on their heads so they can't see where they went. And
that's exactly the thing they do in the first movie. Because they drop a bucket on the cop's head?
I think so.
I can't remember. It's been a while since I've seen the first one. I should have rewatched them both before this one, but
it's still wonderfully stupid every time.
It's so goofy. Yeah, they fall out the window, and the other versions of them were like, oh, I hoped they wouldn't remember that thing that they couldn't remember.
It's like, and if you try to like make this once again, besides infinite realities, you try to make it make sense, it doesn't. But also, who cares? It's funny being themselves when they're there as themselves are dying and they're giving speeches to each other, to themselves, about how much they never got to know, talk, and learn about it, open up to themselves. It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. Actually. I was going to bring that scene up. Like it's a really like weirdly poignant way to talk about getting old and not really knowing what your purpose is, and like, and because we have been sold these narratives in our lives of, you know, you're gonna, you know, you have to grow up and do this. So we see all these people, we see movies, we see like these big success stories of like, in, you know, wealthy millionaires who started in their garage and built up this entire empire and all this shit. And we're like sold these narratives of these things. Like if you work really hard, you know, you can do something amazing, or if you know, if it's destined or whatever, and of course, all these movies of, you know, this character is destined to do this big thing or whatever. And this is like a really interesting thing of, I didn't really get to know who I was because I had this thing hanging over me, like that I thought I was supposed to do. And as a result of me trying to like chase this thing that I thought was there, I didn't actually figure out who I was or what I wanted out of life, or like how to just live. And I think that was like really, it's kind of a very sweet moment in the movie. I mean, the movie is sweet throughout, but it's like this really kind of, it takes a second to pause, and it's still funny because it's them talking to themselves, but it's also like really kind of sweet. And it's this sort of conversation that you might have with yourself as you get older, and as you sort of look back at your life and go like, what did I do? And does it matter?
And you can sometimes kind of feel that Keanu Reeves feels that himself.
Yeah.
Like he's clearly, it helps when you make a percentage of the Matrix box office and you never have to do anything you don't want to do ever again to the moment you die. He got exceedingly wealthy off that movie. That's great. He helped them out by making it, right? But like you can tell at some point, instead of chasing that really big, like being a star, Keanu Reeves just at some point realized, you know what I enjoy? I enjoy making movies, and I enjoy making whatever the fuck I want to make, and showing up wherever I want to show up, and hanging out with people I want to hang out with. And he's kind of eternally young in our eyes, but I imagine this came to him by like our standards, late, like, in his 40s, which is a long time when you work so consistently. So, and social media and magazines and TV and stuff will tell you all the things you're not accomplishing because everyone in our free market is a failed millionaire, right?
Yeah.
Everyone, we all have to punch down. We all have to do things because we're all either failed millionaires or someone below us is holding us down. If we just did this, if we just follow the Motley Fool's fucking once in a lifetime all in stock purchase that they apparently it's once in a lifetime, but they have a new one every week, we could make so much. We just sold this miracle shake and had our friends join our MLM. We'd be millionaires, right? But we never sit back and like, what do I feel like actually fucking doing?
Yeah.
And or even after your shift at work, they just go like, maybe sometimes I don't like doing this is okay because I no longer feel I'm enjoying this. And I'm not feeling the lack of what I'm not doing, and that lack of what you're not doing. And in these guys' case, it's saving the world in reality by writing the perfect song that Tenacious D did but one time. It is a moment of like, you guys chase this thing and you never learn who you actually are.
Yeah.
And luckily these characters aren't super deep people. So they weren't too far off anyways.
No, and I think it's even better as it was. I think we didn't really talk about it much in the prediction episode, but I saw it floating around. This is what you were alluding to earlier on, that it was clear that it had to be the daughters who were going to write the song, and that is what ultimately happens. And I think it makes it even more special that these guys have done all this stuff and they've spent their lives trying to figure out what to do. And it was like they actually they contributed to the song that united all of time and space by having children who were going to do it. Like it's interesting
by raising children who liked what they liked and did what they wanted to do and felt loved and safe. Like not like these are two girls who are don't have a moment of like we're at the very start. We have the grandpa say like they're also failures. They sit in and listen to music all day. They don't have jobs. They don't do this. They don't do that. We're told what they don't do because they're not kids. They're basically young adult.
Yeah, they're in their 20s.
Right?
They do say that.
Yeah, which is nice, which is fun. But these characters never have a moment of like, we're failures. Like they don't see their dads as failures. They see their dads as like, hey, these guys were rock stars. They're awesome.
Yes.
Like our mothers were princesses in the 1400s. That's amazing. We have the coolest family. We have access to all this music. We get to do what we want. We get to enjoy. We enjoy music. I have my best friend who enjoys the same music as I do. And like, they solve the problem of what would be the greatest song in the world. Because Tribute is not the greatest song in the world. It's a song about the greatest song in the world. You never would hear the greatest song in the world. I'm going to keep referencing Tribute in this fucking episode. Because the devil's in that one too. But they do it so like basically what it ends up being, instead of them making this great, amazing song, is they have the skill to create a beat and bring people together. And Bill and Ted go through, make infinity versions of themselves and deliver instruments to everyone in the world. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. Everyone in the world plays along with them. Everyone in all the realities has an instrument and plays along with them, including Missy and Ted's brother. And that is the harmony that brings reality together. So they don't have to write a specific song. It's literally, here's a key, here's a beat.
Yeah.
But it's shown as like the girls understood like, hey, you guys have a better idea of how to harmonize everyone.
Yeah.
As opposed to it being themselves.
Yeah. And
there's no lyrics to it.
No, there's not. It sounds like I don't know if you're familiar with this band Fang Island, but I would encourage everyone to check them out. They do some very sort of guitar heavy kind of fun like pump up music. Like they have an album self-titled called Fang Island that I would describe as like dudes high-fiving. Like that's what it sounds like. And it's like very cheery and fun, like rock music, and that's kind of the vibe that I got from the song that they end up creating. But what I was going to say is that like I love that it's, you know, they come to the realization, because everyone's saying Preston and Logan are going to write this song. I mean,
it's so clear as soon as they start saying Preston and Logan instead of like, oh yeah, it's his kid.
And they go like, and it's for them to just blatantly like bluntly state like, you're not here to be our backing band. We are here to back you up. You're the ones who are going to do this. And like, I think that's an important thing to do. Like it's very specific that they are doing this. And I think that it is important because it's a chance for, you know, like there is not a lot of great representation sometimes in films that we, you know, let dudes do a lot of stuff, and that women don't always get the chance to be the heroes. They sometimes are the damsels in distress. And
when they do, some people are such dicks about it. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Yes, that is very true. And this movie kind of pushes back against that. It lets Thea and Billie like have their own adventure and they're trying to help. They're trying to do their own things, and in fact, they are just building their own band, and they don't realize it at first. Like they think they're building it for their parent, for their dads, but it's all them. It is literally they made the choices. They impressed the people. The band is there for them. They even Death is there for them, for what they said. It's their ability to bring people together that their fathers no longer have. Their fathers don't even have harmony with their wives at this point. Yeah.
Mostly because they're stupid. But, you know, it's just like it's people built like it's, and it's probably, you know, putting way more into it than it has to, but it deserves, but like you're a building block for what comes next.
Yeah.
And, you know, like there's nothing wrong with being who you are. And like, if you make, like, if my child is a better version of me, that's great. I'm not competitive with her. You give them your life lessons, but you don't make them you, right? Like, here's what I've learned. Do something better with it. Cause you know, you live in a different world than I do. And, you know, maybe the world's not going to be saved by late 40-year-old white dudes.
I think almost inevitably it won't be.
I'm pretty sure they're doing a very good job of doing the exact opposite. One of the low key funniest part of the movie. So like whenever in the first two movies, Bill and Ted introduce themselves to anybody doing the arm thing.
Yes.
Out. When they do it kind of old man half-ass in this movie, every time someone says Bill and Ted, and they just go, it like especially when Keanu does it because Ted's supposed to be like really tired and just kind of like worn out on life a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It is very, very funny physical comedy. Because like they do it more and more half-assed the more the movie goes on.
Yeah,
they're like, this is how we greet people.
So I think that's probably a good place to wrap up this episode. We didn't nearly go through the entire movie. We don't think that would be very fun for you to listen to. We think that you should watch Bill and Ted Face the Music. It's a lot of fun. I think that if you've never seen the Bill and Ted movies, like this is a great opportunity to go through all three of them. I feel like they all fit together pretty well. I've seen some folks tweeting online that they were watching them for the first time or rewatching the first couple, in preparation for the third, and talking about how they still pretty much hold up and fit together and feel like consistent of a world. Like
that's what really impresses me about this one was that it feels like a Bill and Ted movie, and it's been decades.
Yeah, it feels to me, it feels like a natural extension of the films that preceded it in a way that is sort of unexpected, because a lot of times when you have these sort of returns of these franchises, they sometimes lose what made the first film so special, and I feel like this is one that really understands it. I mean, it helps that it has some of the creators involved, but like I still feel like it works really well, and the actors are all still pretty game. And I'll go out on a limb and say this is Bill and Ted Face the Music is the Blade Runner 2049 of comedies.
What if?
Because Blade Runner 2049 is great. It feels like it belongs in the same world as the original Blade Runner, but that's just me.
Oh, it does. But here's like, once again, I think I mentioned the show before, but it's been a while and we might have new listeners. I want to see Blade Runner 2049 in theater because it's beautiful, right?
Yes, of course.
And the soundtrack is great. It was a later showing, so everyone's getting a little tired. There was an older couple in front of me. I do not know why I went to see this movie because they fell asleep very, very quickly, both of them. And they were just kind of snoring throughout the movie, which great. That movie is not for everybody. But I would have thought people who it wasn't for would recognize that well in advance. But there's a beautiful scene near the end where he's sitting on the snow on the stairs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's found out a very important thing about himself. And it's very quiet. The movie has very loud moments and very quiet moments. There's a very quiet moment. The theater's very quiet. The snow is coming down. It's just this very poignant moment in the movie because you've been kind of trying to figure out something about this character the entire time, and you've learned something about them, and you're kind of with him on it. And it's quiet in the snow, and then that old man who's asleep let out the longest, loudest fart you have ever heard.
Of course.
Of course. I love that all three of these movies take place regardless of most of the time frames in San Dimas.
Oh yeah, of course. You gotta keep it.
No
consistent.
movie like specifically picks a almost suburb of a major city and just kind of sits there the entire time. It's never LA. It's never
no. Of course not. It's San Dimas. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for this episode. Check out Bill and Ted Face the Music. Wholeheartedly gets the predictocast stamp of approval. I don't think we've ever done that before on a movie, but we're doing it now.
We should make now that we're doing current movies now, and then we should really break out like some kind of award gif to give to movies so they can put it on their posters. They can say like, oh, predictocast said we're awesome.
Yeah, it gets 2 guitar solos up. We'll be back later this week with a new mini episode setting up the month of September that has been bought out by our Patreon supporters. So join us on Wednesday for that mini episode. But until then, I've been Josh.
I've been Skinner.
And we predict you'll join us.
Party on, dudes.
And be excellent to each other. If you like the show, subscribe, rate, and review us over at Apple Podcasts. We're on Twitter and Instagram at predictocast, and you can find our entire back catalog at predictocast.com. Our theme music is by Kyle Sledge. Find more of his work at soundcloud.com/geistmusic. To get monthly bonus content, sign up at patreon.com/predictocast. As always, thanks for listening.